to Chatting Kit, episode 1, which is a podcast series. It's going to be available on every major podcast channel there's ever been, including Spotify, and it might be on YouTube as well, so you can see our lovely faces. This is a 3-part series. The first part of this series is with Mike Kent, the managing director of Kitlocker. The second part is going to be with Billy Sharp of Sheffield United, and the third part is going to be with Matt Smith of Palmers FC, the original content creator for grassroots football. He doesn't know that we're doing it yet, so
let's hope he says yes.
If he watches it prior, hi Smith. The point of this is because we work with a lot of cool and interesting people, and we thought that why not ask them a lot of questions.
I'm just a filler for week 1.
You're. This is the test dry run. So we've broken this up into a group of questions. So we've got some soft questions, is what I've got written down on the iPad. Harder hitting questions, and then a section called Are You Normal, which we're going to be rolling out across every guest. So those are the answers that I'm really looking forward to. So, to get things started, tell me a bit about yourself, Mike, and what Kitlocker is.
So, as Ollie mentioned, I'm the managing director of Kitlocker.com. Myself and a good friend and my current business partner and co-director, Tom Ward, set Kitlocker up approximately 14 years ago. I studied at Sheffield Hallam University some 18 years ago, and as part of one of my modules wrote a business plan about supplying kit into predominantly the kind of education sector. Got to graduation, wasn't quite sure what direction I wanted to sort of go in, and myself and Tom just decided to kind of give it a go. I wouldn't describe myself as massively entrepreneurial, but the kind of business idea made sense, and we find ourselves 14 years later, and Kitlocker's now it's quite an established business in quite a few different channels, very football focused, work in lots of different sports, education, etc., and very much online focused.
I've been in a few meetings with you, and you've said that spiel before. How many times, if you could put a number on it, have you said that?
Within the last 5 minutes, like 3 times. 3 takes. We were thousands upon thousands.
Cool. Take it back to before Kitlocker. What did Mike Kent do to pay for his phone contract?
I had a couple of jobs prior to uni and at uni. So I worked in a betting shop for a while.
We're not going to say which one.
We won't mention it.
We're not plugging them.
We're impartial. And I was also a relief postman for a summer. But the reason that I kind of came to Sheffield, as did Tom, was we're both volleyball players. So that was kind of what drove me to come to uni, and a bit of work around it. But prior to Kitlocker, I didn't really have a kind of career as such. So this has been kind of learning on my feet, which is all good fun.
So if you never wrote a business plan for Kitlocker when you were at uni and you just graduated, left uni, did your gap year, and then got a job, what would that job be?
That's a good question. If I had gone to uni, well, my degree was in a kind of sport management field, so I imagine it'd be something sport management related. But that said, I also started to study as a management accountant upon graduating, so I hate to say I may well have gone down a management accounting route, but yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Would you be in Sheffield?
That's another good question. I'd like to think so. Sheffield's a good place, so it's a great place to live, and an awful lot of kind of graduate students will stay. We've got a kind of great sort of graduate scheme that we kind of run here at Kitlocker.
That can be a plug if you want.
Yeah, Sheffield Hallam, thank you very much, but also other universities that have fed into that. But no, Sheffield's a good place. So, yeah, I'd like to think I would be.
Cool. Stepping away from Kitlocker for 2 seconds, probably the only time we're going to do this. Quite an open-ended question. Are entrepreneurs born...
Say that again.
Entrepreneurs Are they made or are they born?
Well, as I kind of alluded to, I don't believe I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'd safely say that Tom is more entrepreneurial than myself, my business partner. So I think it is something that's innate. I think it's something that you're born with, and it's a very interesting sort of skill set. I think I'm very different. I don't think I have entrepreneurial instincts, should we say. I'm more of a kind of more considered, I feel.
That's really nice of you.
That is.
So, before I do go into Kitlocker, I've just said that I want to go into Kitlocker questions next, but I'm not. If you could give someone that wants to start their own business some advice around starting up from scratch, what would it be?
That's another good question. I wish you'd given me these to prep before coming on. You need to be rock solid with the business idea. I think it's important to make sure that you've really considered what it is you're going to do. We're quite fortunate in this industry. The barriers to entry are relatively low, so there's not massive startup costs. So you need to make sure you're not making a mistake, but also just be prepared for hard graft, and a lot of hard graft, because it's as rewarding as it is. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
There's a really good answer, because my immediate thought of what your answer would be was going to be, don't do it. So that's actually quite a good answer.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Why, thank you.
So, flipping back onto Kitlocker for a second, this is one of my questions. I'm just going to plug that in there. Was there a defining moment where the penny dropped with Kitlocker? Did you think, actually, this is going to work? Or you can talk about like getting a business-to-business account with Nike, or hiring staff. Has there been one moment that you've been thought, oh, this is happening?
Well, it's been a long 14 years. It's been 14 years. So there'll be quite a few kind of key moments throughout the business, but it's from the background that we came from, the kind of limited experience of anything different. It's been one massive learning lesson, which we're still kind of we're still on a journey of kind of discovery and learning, as you've kind of seen with more recently some of the kind of interesting stuff we're doing. Ask me the question again.
I'm gonna have to reread it. Has there been a penny drop moment?
Penny drop moment. Many. We originally set off to introduce e-commerce into a sector that just hadn't had any sort of e-commerce. So we were one of the first, if not the first, player in sort of teamwear that wanted to service via online stores. We had no experience of whether this was going to work or not. So there was always that doubt that would this actually kind of go to market and make any sense? And again, that kind of those learnings that we've kind of had over the last sort of 10, 14, however long it's been, there's just continual penny drop moments. You mentioned the kind of Nike account. It's quite an interesting relationship, and how that started was that they identified our kind of e-commerce presence that we built up in a kind of education setting, and were very keen for us to sort of deploy that with some of the key opportunities that they were being presented with. So that's led to us working with Oxford University for a number of years. So yeah, lots of pennies dropping all over the show.
So that's not a case of, well, it kind of is a case of being right place, right time, but also being able to demonstrate an ability to execute stuff.
Yeah, I think an awful lot of what we've done is quite fortuitous. And then in hindsight, you look back and say we've made some right decisions, but we've also made quite a few wrong decisions. And again, learnings from being in business, you just need to kill the bad ideas quite quick, and learn from your more fortuitous good ideas. Where, it's kind of interesting.
Cool, great answer to that one question. If you had a time machine and they were a thing, and you could go back to 2005 when Kitlocker was born, what one piece of advice could you give yourself?
I don't think there was any one piece of advice. Whilst the experience that I've picked up since 2005 is pretty varied and would probably have accelerated growth, I think that you need to go through a lot of the learnings that we went through. So our approach to kind of growing Kitlocker has always been around problem solving, understanding the market, understanding the customer. You need to learn and kind of experience that to kind of really refine things and sort of really push ourselves on. So we kind of reference our approach as being trying to change Teamwear. You need to understand what it is you're trying to change. So I don't think I'd have really recommended anything. There are a few stupid things we've done that, would try not to do them again. But again, you kind of learn from them, and that shapes you and shapes the kind of business model.
It's a very educated answer, and almost.
You keep complimenting me after my answers.
I do. I wonder why that is. In the early days, so even when it was when you were writing this business plan, was there anyone that you asked for advice from? So did you have a mentor, or was it somebody within the university, or was it a book or a piece of literature or a website that you'd look at for help?
Not massively. So again, back in the day, it was quite a new idea in terms of the way of kind of servicing stuff. So my core focus when writing the business plan was to write the business plan and get it submitted, so I didn't fail a module. Whilst the involvement that myself and Tom had in running our kind of university sports club gave an awful lot of insight into problems in this industry back in 2005. That was the core focus. I wasn't really thinking this is going to be something I take forward and set up a business from.
Okay, so that actually leads me into my next question, because it was going to be, why did you start a business? But I kind of know the answer of, you didn't want to fail a module at uni. is why you started a business.
Done. That's it.
So I'm actually onto the section now that says harder hitting questions.
Oh crikey!
So I mean, they're not that hard. But the first one is, in the early days, or even it could even be like right now, did you ever think about just sacking it off, or thinking, I don't want to do this, or I can't do this?
Yeah, like there's a lot of sort of instances whereby you'd kind of doubt yourself, and you need a lot of self-confidence to run a business. Myself and Tom set up as a kind of partnership to start off with, which I think was a good idea, in that if one of you kind of has a bit of self-doubt, you look for a bit of reinforcement from the other. But everything with a growing business, there's an awful lot of uncertainty. You're never quite sure where the kind of drive for sales are going to come. So there's always been, and there still is, sort of, I say self-doubt more, not so much self-doubt, but just kind of that understanding of where our next revenue streams are coming from, next opportunities are coming from. And it's, it kind of leads you to kind of question certain things, but there's an awful lot of kind of upside of running a business. So we've been quite fortunate in that we've grown since day one. We've never really taken a backward step. So whilst that kind of self-doubt may have kind of presented itself, never to the extent that we've thought about winding things up.
So you talk about a lot of upsides to having a business and running a business.
Bringing Oscar to work.
Bringing your dog to work is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
What kind of other things, like, that you can think of at the top of the head where you're like, I won't be able to do this, or that's a big perk for like getting up in the morning by running your own business?
I think that one of the key things is, and obviously having been involved with the business since day one, it's changed quite significantly, which means my role within the business has changed quite significantly. It's nice now having a more kind of rounded management team. Some phenomenal people that we employ, colleagues of yours, not so much yourself, but but it's it's great kind of coming into work, working with these guys, seeing them develop, and seeing an awful lot of the kind of hard work that we've all put in coming to fruition. That's really quite rewarding. And the key thing with business is kind of understanding what you're not good at, and this isn't running a business, this is sort of in general. If you're not good at something, don't necessarily sort of flog yourself to get better. In our instance, we can employ people or work with people to kind of remove that sort of those weaknesses from you, which just allows you to concentrate on stuff you enjoy more, or you're more effective at kind of delivering on.
You're a great leader. Great leader.
I'm not sure about that.
Can I vote for you in the next election? You almost ruined my next question there, but
Sorry.
you didn't. So, did you ever think, so for people that are listening to this, they probably won't know, unless they follow us very closely on social media, we've moved into a new office that's significantly larger than our previous building. So
Not just new office though.
no, so a
New
new
facility.
warehouse facility. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we've gone from, say, 12,000 square foot to 44,000, which can be doubled. Am I right in saying ish?
Yeah, we've got some room for expansion within that, which is good.
And there's probably around, a quick head count would say 65 to 70 members of full-time staff. Did you ever think that you'd get to a stage where you could look around and see that?
I don't know whether I'm just a bit strange, which probably leads into are you normal kind of questioning, but it's never sort of been something where you kind of sit back and reflect too much and think, why haven't we done well? It's just been almost natural progression. So, and it's not kind of surprising, whilst the kind of space has changed quite significantly in terms of the amount of space and the sort of the environment we're in our new facility. It was just a considered business decision, and it made sense to kind of make that step. We're probably sat in our old facility for 18 months longer than we should have been. So yeah, and then the kind of the sort of the growth that we're experiencing or have experienced, it's all felt very much natural, for want of a kind of better term. And whilst it is kind of nice to reflect and say, like, haven't we done some cool stuff? It's, I don't know, it's a weird one in that I don't kind of sit back and think we've done really well. I don't even think we've kind of got started. There's so much potential in the group, and what we're doing is some really, really cool stuff. So we've got so much more to kind of to give. I think so much more to do. So yeah, it's a weird one.
Well, that's good, because I think a lot of people that are here now think that there's a lot more to give.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Not more
including
left to give.
Alex behind the camera. Shout out to Alex.
Shout out to Alex.
Cool. So, in your opinion, is it important to be hands-on as a managing director of a small to medium enterprise?
I think it's, again, there is almost like an evolution. So the way the company's grown, it's been very important to get hands-on, and I think for two reasons. One, to show the rest of the team that you're prepared to kind of roll up your sleeve and kind of get involved, which kind of works to a point, but you also need the distance from the front line so that you can actually kind of operate smarter. But what I've taken from my involvement in a lot of the frontline stuff over the many years is how we develop our internal systems and processes to really refine it and make ourselves as efficient as we can be. And the more we scale, the more we find sort of pinch points that we look at fixing. We're quite systems oriented as a business, which I'm really quite involved in, that sort of development side of things and that innovation. But if you don't learn from actually getting involved in doing, it's difficult to then have the context so when the different teams in our business are feeding back and saying we could be doing this in a better way, you need that kind of inherent understanding of a process or a function to be able to say, yes, cool, this makes sense, and build accordingly.
Yeah, and I think that a few people in Kitlocker have probably worked across a number of departments, which probably gives them a better idea and understanding of different functions within Kitlocker. Do you think that knowing a number of these departments inside out kind of gives you a better understanding moving forward for suggestions and stuff like that?
Yeah, it definitely helps. Like, honestly, yeah, really, really kind of helps. And you can also understand some of the intricacies of pretty much every part of the business, which I think is really fundamentally quite important.
And it also helps if you've got a job that needs printing tomorrow, you can just do it yourself, right?
It does, yeah. It has its benefits.
So earlier you referenced what we're trying to achieve as a company, and that's changing Teamwear, which is a hashtag that we band around on social media quite a lot. I think it's even on the delivery bags, as per Alex's artwork. So, in your opinion, what is the state of Teamwear as an industry, especially in the UK? Obviously, it's very different elsewhere, but here in particular, what is your thoughts around it?
I think we don't spend a huge amount of time sort of assessing, I say, Teamwear in the UK too much. I think we've taken an awful lot of influence from best practice outside of Teamwear. I kind of referenced the sort of lower barriers to entry, which kind of means that there's it creates an interesting kind of market condition. And from day one, we were trying to approach it from a very different way, but not necessarily understanding the kind of impact that we were going to have in the marketplace. It's taken quite a lot of what would be our kind of competition in the sector to really sort of become a bit more agile in how they sort of approach Teamwear from an e-commerce standpoint. And this is where we've looked at changing Teamwear. We've implemented an awful lot of some quite minor things, but some quite major things into our kind of core offerings, which really have pushed us on as a business, and in essence have changed Teamwear. So we work quite closely with a number of our key suppliers, and they're really quite switched on to an awful lot of what we do, and that then kind of waterfalls down to kind of competitors seeing what we're doing and sort of emulating an awful lot of it, which is good, because fundamentally it's improving the customer service in the sector. And it's a very hard industry to service, which is why we look to move relatively slowly in terms of our kind of growth. We weren't ever trying to shift volume too quick. We weren't trying to grow too fast, because we always knew that service would kind of come back round and bite us in the ass if we kind of got that wrong. So yeah, it's an interesting industry.
So you've said about maybe new competitors or players in this market coming in and almost like emulating certain functions or processes that we have implemented. Do you take inspiration from any bigger brands and look at what they're doing and think that would be good for Kitlocker to do?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you have to. I think that whilst there are certain things that are very specific to our kind of industry and setup, which I'd give ourselves kind of credit for sort of innovating and sort of being at the front line for affecting change. There's lots of different sort of sectors that have a similar set of conundrums, which are effectively is what business is, a series of kind of, I say, issues that need to be solved as best as possible. And we've in the past we've taken the lead from some of them, and whether that's visual, functional, strategic, they all sort of feed in and allow us to take inspiration.
If I'm really intrigued about this, and I'm sure people that probably will be listening will be intrigued, if you had to name one company that you would take, if you could only take inspiration from one company, what company would it be?
Oh, crikey.
I think on your top of your head, you're going to say Amazon, maybe? Off the top of your head?
No, I don't think so. And they've changed. They've just changed the game in e-commerce, which is obviously very much a given. And the way that they've shifted focus to really kind of drive that customer service is like ridiculously impressive. It's just it's mental. And an awful lot of their kind of efficiencies and systems, but it's almost not sort of, it's very difficult to sort of emulate that. I think I'm gonna have to come back on this one. I can't think of one company that have inspired us.
I'll let you have a think then, because this next one's probably going to take some thinking. The year is 2029, and probably move from this building to a new one, maybe. Where do you see Kitlocker in 10 years' time?
Now you're asking an interesting question.
Would we be doing what we're doing now but better, or would it be working with new brands, new sectors?
Well, we're going through a bit of a shift at the minute, so we're trying to get better sort of definition across a few key sort of sectors that we play in, different sports, different markets. 10 years is a long time, and the change that we are currently seeing in the sportswear, the core sportswear industry is quite interesting. It's quite there's an awful lot of unknown in that sense. How this will then play out with Teamwear in our kind of the more direct markets that we play in, I'd need a bit of a crystal ball to understand that. I think this will be it'll be very different how we're shaped up.
I have a crystal ball, and it says in 10 years England have won the World Cup and the Euros. Billy Sharp will still be playing for Sheffield United, scoring goals, and we'd be supplying
Sheffield United
football kits to every grassroots football team in the country. We'd be the only partner. The only partner. The partner. And Sheffield United as well. So, I'm going to take this to the point now of the Chatting Kit podcast, which is...
Where did the inspiration for that name come from?
Well, we've actually got a young, upcoming young gun in marketing. Some talent who actually thought of that herself, so shout out to Lucy on that one. I'm going to try and flip this round into almost like a job interview setting and ask you...
This isn't fair.
Do you have any questions for myself or the Chatting Kit podcast and where the future of it lies?
Well, I guess I'll turn it around and ask what is the future for Chatting Kit?
So, I mean, I'm the presenter. I'm not the brains behind it. I'm just a looks. But I think that we, as a team...
It's flawed then.
That's not me being serious. I think we've got quite a talented group of people, which allows us to do stuff like this, which traditionally other retailers or companies wouldn't do. But as I tried to allude to at the start, we work with some really talented, interesting people, which maybe people that don't even have to follow our socials, they might want to know more about that person. And I know we always joke about this and we reference it a lot, and Ben Francis, the guy that made Gymshark, like if he uploads...
He's your inspiration, isn't he?
He is. I kind of love it. I've got a bit of a man crush on him, but if he uploads a new YouTube video, I'm straight on it, because I kind of want to see what's happening behind the scenes that you don't see as a customer facing. You go on their website, you don't know anything about what their office looks like or what their business function is from like a warehouse and a fulfillment side of things. You don't get to see that. So I think that, as I said, we're quite fortunate and we've got the ability to do it in-house. Yeah, it might not be as polished as a content creator that's doing it as a full-time thing, but it's something that we can do and add value to, that people that follow Kitlocker as a brand and not just a retail partner, because everybody can be a retail partner. There's loads of retail partners, but not every retail partner is adding value through content. So yeah, we might be quite raw at it, but we get better over time. Just look at our Instagram account. We did iPhone, and now we've got Canon numbers and letters. Alex will have to explain that.
Some good tech.
Yeah,
no, it is something that you've or we've been wanting to do for quite some time, in terms of showcasing some of the business side of what we do. I think it is important that we present ourselves to our audience, so that people can get a bit of an insight into what we are all about. I think it's a good thing. This might be the worst of all of all of the Chatting Kit podcasts, but
I think this is going to break Chatting Kit podcast viewing records because it's the first one.
I can't beat Billy Sharp.
So, just to wrap up and finalise, I did allude to this at the start, but episode 2 of the Chatting Kit podcast will be with Billy Sharp of Sheffield United, and then the third will be with Matt Smith of Palmer's FC. So keep an eye out for those. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, mate.